Wake up and deliver.
Good morning, everybody, to another Wake Up and Deliver, episode 16. It is Monday, September 16th. It is going to be an interesting day, as all days in September usually are. I don't know why I say that, but I feel like it. And good morning, John. What's going on in John's world this morning before we start?
Morning. Nothing crazy. I actually just thought that was cool. Episode 16 on the 16th. Like that was
That
unplanned,
is
but
cool.
it just landed there. Yeah, no, that's very cool. I also like that Kat was like, she wasn't just in the audience, she was ready. There was an emoji reaction like immediately, like when you started talking. So active, engaged, appreciated. Oh, there's another one. Look at that. Love it.
As always, we're going to get some coffee for the brain to start off with, and we get John to judge if it's a good one or not. I like it, as always. If you ask other people about every decision you make, you're going to end up doing exactly what everyone else does and getting the same results that everyone else gets. Brain food this morning.
I'll give you my little reaction. I like that one. I give you a celebratory clap.
Ooh, I like that.
That's super true, man. Honestly, like I think I'd say bitch about it quite like enough in the sense of, everybody looks for these different alternatives and they want to do things different way, but then they keep choosing whether it's hiring people in the same way or, executing in the same way, and then they all sit there around the table being like, I wonder why we didn't get different results, guys. Well, I wonder why.
Well, that's funny. That kind of leads into your post this morning about Amazon and Walmart doing something different. And it
Well,
should be
different,
take notes.
different. I don't know. I've already seen some of the guys in my network that are very Walmart centric, like kind of jumping on me a bit, which is cool. But I don't think it's necessarily that new. Amazon and Walmart have kind of been going back and forth, but I think that there's probably a lot of truth to the fact that that Walmart has been very inspired by a lot of Amazon sort of structures. What I thought was like more dangerous about it though is when you have an organization like Walmart with the position that they have, not just in a retail marketplace, but even in an operations marketplace, right? Like Walmart's one of the largest, if not the largest private fleet, for example, in the US.
Yeah.
When these guys start looking at their business more holistically, right? And saying, hey, I generate this much cash and I don't really care where it comes from, and I'm going to use it to achieve, whatever goals they may be, which is what Amazon has been doing. Like that's one of Amazon's strengths, right? Compared to a lot of traditional retail. But now that you have Walmart looking to get more into that, using their retail media network, for example, using their insights platform, and their subscription platform, right? All types of things that Amazon has done. But you also layer in 4,600 plus stores. You layer in the fact that you're the biggest grocer in the US. That's dangerous, man. That's like dangerous for everybody when you have a retailer that's like, I don't care where my money comes from. I'm just going to collect bags of cash and I'm going to use it to achieve whatever I want to achieve.
Yeah, well, I'm curious to see how they're going to do it with expanding international, because you haven't seen too many international expansions with Walmart. And the one thing about Amazon is it's very much more global in that sense, right? So can you see this retail arm of, maybe not brick and mortar stores, but more virtual stores in Europe and offering the Walmart way elsewhere around the world that they didn't do before, because they always thought they needed brick and mortars, right?
Yeah, Walmart. That's a good point. Actually, it's funny enough. I saw something that seemed like it was controversial, like Target taking a stance, being like, "No, we didn't open a store in Mexico, but they opened some kind of office." So I got to look at that later because I was like, "Why is that a big deal?" So I gotta find out why that's there. The Walmart side's interesting because I think you get a lot of pushback, especially in the European markets, like for that concept of like a Walmart and what it represents. That being said, though. One thing that's standing out more here, and I have to believe it's happening in the US, but probably, in different, pockets or regions or whatever. But I've noticed that my local Walmart has become very regionalized, and they're very aware of their consumer
Regional
segmentation.
consumer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when it comes to understanding who's in the store, the type of people, the breadth of the ethnicities and stuff like that, and they're catering to it 100%. Like they're leaning into it. So they're like, hey, if this store has this particular customer base as a representation, then I'm going to cater to it more. And that's a strategy that started coming up a little bit more in grocery in general. But I think that it's showing that, to your point, there's a much broader acceptance across customers in general when it comes to Walmart. And I think that has a lot to do with the current economy, right? Things get
Oh,
tough. These guys have dominated on low price and that rollback, and people are just taking it.
yeah, but wouldn't that kind of hurt the rollback? Because before they can get a good price because they have so many of the same stores having the same product. But now if you start regionalizing it, and let's say I have a good strong Polish community and some Walmart, and I start getting a whole bunch of Polish products in there, it's only that one store. You're not going to get the same rollback effect of Walmart as you used to because it's so regionalized to that segment. And not only that, the supply chain, then you have so many more SKUs. Your DCs, have to be positioned in the right stores to be able to deliver on those products, and I don't know, might create some supply chain chaos.
Yeah. So that's a. I'm laughing because I'm thinking back to your Saturday satire post. I'll put that over your satire post about the supply chain. You used to be able to order something and just get it. Now you can't get it. Anyways, you guys should go look that up. You'll see why I think that's funny. Anyways, I agree. And I guess that really opens up the possibility of being like, as you have more products coming into a supply chain, right? Like as you have a company like Walmart that's broadening out, does that make them more or less inclined to bring on new partners, right? They've been very vocal about how much of their supply chain is automated. I think they're like over 45% now. I think the actual last number is like 46% of their fulfillment is happening, through to their stores or through to end customers, almost completely automated. But you're right, as you bring in more products, and this was something that we talked about, maybe we can segue after, but you do increase complexity for sure. But to your first point about Walmart, you've dealt with Costco. I've dealt with Costco. Like, people in the audience, I'm sure, have dealt with Costco, for example. And they typically sell less stuff, right, than other people, like especially when it comes to SKU breadth and things like that. And they double down on fast moving SKUs. But everybody wants to work with Costco because you're going to get some kind of ROI on it. And I think Walmart is the same. I really don't think Walmart is going to hurt their brand power, because you get this weird dichotomy of like, the bigger and established brands that are already selling into Walmart, they don't want to lose those sales, so they'll keep Walmart interested. Those newer companies or those more regional or more maybe consumer specific or consumer segmented type brands, they want to get in there because it'll dramatically increase their sales. So I think you get this tension between like the incumbents who are like, no sales VP wants to go in and say that they're losing share at Walmart, or that, Walmart's the reason that their numbers are tanking. And you've got all of this interest from, everybody else essentially too.
It's definitely going to be a curious factor because a lot of these marketplaces too take a beating on it. So if Walmart notices one of their marketplaces is doing phenomenally well, they're going to put on their shelves based on that demographic that's buying it. So they can be like, hey, you can buy this at our local Walmart now because we noticed this is a popular item, and
Yeah.
they don't need to do as much research into what products to put on their shelves because they're getting a lot of those analytical data from the marketplace, which I find it very, very interesting because you mentioned one of the first things is they're really leaning into that analytics of their abilities. And anyways, I've noticed there's a whole bunch of new listeners this week. As always, if you have something to say, you want to come join us, this is an open forum. Anybody can come up, raise your hand, and join the conversation and steer it a different way. And that's the whole idea about our Wake Up and Deliver. We're just trying to push the conversation any which way we can every week. Yeah. Anyways, on that comment, John, I'll leave you back.
No, I agree, and not just, by all means agree, disagree, change it, like Matt's saying, like anything that's kind of relevant, especially too. There's so much news going on. Just before we started, I was like, what do you want to talk about? What are we going to get into specifically? And it's like, I don't know. There's so much going on, but different things have different levels of importance or relevancy for everyone. So if there's something cool that's on your mind and you want to bring it up, by all means, we're always open to that. Yeah, a couple of other things then to start it off. I've got like a host of stuff I've been sitting on, like Roots and Inditex and whatever, like Zara, because I thought there's two interesting things, right? So first off, Zara as a brand, and just because I don't think I pronounced Inditex properly most of the time, so I'm just gonna say Zara, okay? Um, It's true. I read it when I write about it. I'm always like double checking and being like, did I make a typo? Because I think there's another company called IDEX or IDIDEX that's very similar anyway, and it's not the same. So, anyways, um, so Zara is just crushing it still. These guys are like honestly just so far ahead. And I had posted this thing that was from a bunch of news about Shein being like the world's biggest polluter now. And someone asked me in the comments like, oh, well, like what's Zara and H&M doing? And Zara is a little bit less open with it. They seem like, though, they're a little bit more focused on their sustainability. But the interesting thing was seeing all of their recent financial stats about how they're continuing to grow their sales, continuing to grow their margin, but they're now also highly focused, and they have been for a while. But imagine, you're trying to compete with some of these guys. You're a smaller brand. You're looking for your 3PLs. You're looking for your transportation providers, whatever it is. And here's a company like Zara that's straight up like, oh, and by the way, we're crushing it on margin. We're super popular and everything. And by the way, guys, we're investing $1.8 billion in the next 2 years in our logistics operation. Yeah, in logistics, actually, specifically. It's like, the situation of the haves and the have-nots is going to get really bad in the next like honestly 2 years.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of large 3PLs that are doing the same kind of investments and providing that for the SMEs as well, right? So it's not like Zara itself provides that for their logistics, but there's companies that will do it, like C.H. Robinson, RXO. All these companies are investing the same kind of dollar figures to make it their purpose to help those SMEs, because they know they can't take everything away from Zara and their supply chain because they're so very analytical. So they have to prop themselves up with these smaller brands and able to do the same kind of output as they're looking for, right?
For sure. And I agree that there's obviously lots of options. I mean, funny enough, even Walmart being invested in Symbotic or whatever, which is like their whole position is to democratize and make much more accessible like road automation and robotics like for everybody. I think where the challenge is, and this goes back to when we were talking about things like pricing and we're talking about like how good you have to be on operational execution these days. I just think that it becomes challenging when you have to try to deal with everybody else's like constraints and you don't have as much control. Like Amazon, what most people don't realize is that actually Amazon's a good example of I think where this is coming up. So Amazon enforces an absolute ton of restrictions and conditions, like when you want to do FBA and you want to leverage all of their sort of their machine, right? Like all of their fulfillment machine. But the big news, I guess, that came out, what was it, sometime last week, was that Amazon sent a bunch of like essentially like, thanks for your sales, but we're good and we're walking away kind of letters to all of these people where they were buying the product and they were doing all of the management. And I think that that's just coming from the fact that, a lot of brands and a lot of retailers are starting to like streamline and really understand like what's working, what's not, where they want to double down and where they don't. And that's where I think the brands that have a lot of this stuff in-house, whether it's Zara, whether it's Amazon with their own specific, brands or their own, distributor, let's call it distributor type activity where they're just buying and selling someone else's stuff, but in massive quantities, whether it's Walmart, anyone. When they are the ones completely in control versus like, even if you have like a big 3PL or a big provider like a CH or XPO, no matter who it is, but they're still managing all of these different brands. They've got this weird kind of thing where it's like it's beneficial for them to manage the brand as they want to manage them, i.e. I'm going to charge you for all of your space. I'm going to charge you for all of your storage. I'm going to charge all of these things, right? And I'm going to just do whatever I said I would do as a service provider for you, Mr. Customer, as opposed to like, hey, this SKU's a dog. This needs to be rationalized. This isn't working. You have too much space here. I need it to give it to this kind of, product mix or whatever, which isn't happening.
isn't that the value that they should be looking for? Isn't that the value that the customers and the manufacturers should want from their 3PLs? Not only more of that distribution style of analytics. There's a lot of distributors out there that provide that, but don't provide the other stuff that the 3PLs do. And there's no true mixture of that kind of. Well, not that I'm aware of off the top of my head, that does a great job at both, where it's like, hey, your analytics on these SKUs suck. We need to tweak this and do these, like your logistics team, like you said, from Zara would be able to do. Or, you hire someone else from the outside to help you with that.
Oh, 100%. We talked about that remember when we did the conversation with Jay and whatever, and we were just, and I said, my comment was like, more 3PLs need to become like a 4PL, but not in the sense of managing the whole book of business, but being a lot more of a business partner, a lot more proactive, just because of the fact that they have to do it. I think that, where I think that the big challenge is going to be, and this is probably on my mind since I wrote that goddamn novel of a newsletter over the weekend that next to like killed me. I was like, oh my God, it felt like I couldn't get it to end.
Because you stayed up late again. You left at the last minute again.
I didn't. No, I spent like pretty much a good part of like Saturday on that thing. It's just like it's very complicated when you're talking about inventory and then trying to break it down to like a newsletter format that's like someone could read on Sunday morning, like while they're like sipping coffee and like kids or whatever are going crazy in the background. But the idea of being like, to your point, okay, so now I'm going to be a 3PL provider and I'm going to tell you, hey, Mr. Customer, this version of your shoe, of your sweater, of your accessory, whatever, sucks. You need to get rid of it, right? But that brand, how much are they leveraged in their inventory? How much have they bought into bad strategies potentially about the type of risk mitigation and diversification that they're taking? How much inventory do they have peppered across the country that they can't just, like, they need those dollars back because like that's where their cash is, like that's where their profit is, and they can't just necessarily afford to liquidate it or quickly reduce it, because if they don't sell it, maybe they're going bankrupt.
Yeah, and that's the challenge of having bad analytics prior to selling a product as well, right? It's part of knowing which of your product, quote unquote, will be viral or won't be viral, or is the market tested, or any of that. That's why those analytics, like we were talking about Zara or Walmart and Amazon, have that power, because they can put it across multiple different similar items and will be like, yeah, this will sell or this one won't sell. Because there's, even now we're coming into fourth quarter. I think is it now or even last month, people already hedged or buying what's going to be the toy of the year come Christmas time.
Oh yeah.
And
you have to.
It's,
you have
it's
to.
a guess.
It's like, yeah, for sure. Well, is it a guess, or do some people shape it? There you go, a little food for thought this morning.
It is partially a guess, because even if they shape it, they're pushing it. Sometimes it just doesn't click with the certain audience that they're hoping to click with, right? And now I think there's more analytics out there that people know what will be, but it's like that whole, I don't know if you remember, you probably do, a few years ago, I remember when my kids were younger, the fidget spinners.
Oh, like, fidget spinners, yeah. So
it was like an underdog. Nobody knew it was going to be the thing. And then people were buying container full out of China as quick as possible because there was a shortage. And everybody needed to have a fidget spinner. And there wasn't going to be, and they knew there wasn't going to be enough for Christmas because everybody wanted it at the time, right?
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things that the analytics, pre-analytics, you hope to get, to be able to be like, hey, this product is going to sell. And you and I have talked about this as well, where you can have these small little short supply inventory sales to see if your product's going to sell in a very specific region, where it's like a pop-up sale, right? And trying to be dynamic. That's where Shein and TikTok and all those brands do well, because they do those type of influencer style sales, see how well it does. If it picks up, they know it's going to be a big thing, because they shorted the market.
Well, but it's funny, and it's funny though too, because there's such a dichotomy between the people that seem to have a certain momentum and then other people that are like either confused by what's happening, right? Because before we jumped on, you were talking about Lulu, and I had written something about them too, and then I mentioned something about Roots, because so imagine you have these people like a Shein or whatever, and they're really honestly benefiting from huge SKU counts, rapid turnover, lots of offers, and all kinds of stuff like that. But then on the flip side, and I could just see if like the president of like Lululemon or the president of Roots was listening to this, they're going to be like, look at these two idiots trying to tell us about their business. But no, but here's the thing. All you have to do, No, but this is the thing, and I for everyone listening, this is the most powerful thing that anyone can do that every big business forgets, or every business eventually forgets, is that put yourself as a customer. And if you have a logical thought as a customer, the likelihood is that you're not the only one. And then it just becomes how many of your customers are thinking the same way. Because Lulu's president was like, oh, guys, our sales have stagnated. We figured out the problem. And this is Roots too. Roots said the same thing essentially. Our sales are tanking. They're going down by about 3-4%. And Lulu's flat. And both of these geniuses come out being like, oh, you know what the problem is? We need more stuff.
More
like
SKUs.
no word of a lie. I was at the I went shopping yesterday, and we were at the outlets and all of this stuff. Walked into the Lulu outlet store. I can tell you that walking into that store, my first impression was not like, man, these guys make too much of the same stuff. It was like hot pink to like electric yellow, like you got shorts and tanks, you got they have Lulu Labs that come out with like these tech wear things. Like, trust me, I don't feel that their problem is someone walking into one of their stores being like, man, if only they made more stuff. If only they had more patterns for me to choose.
More choice.
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, if anyone has a different opinion, please feel free to tell me I'm wrong. But, and then you have Roots that's like, man, you know why our sales are going down? Is that we're just not into enough categories. We need to get into the athleisure category. It's like, Roots, you guys most certainly don't need to add more complexity to your supply chain with more SKUs and more variants. And you most certainly don't need to jump into the most saturated part of apparel at the moment, which is athleisure.
See, I find it very interesting, though. I don't know if you've noticed it, at least from my own perspective. I always notice it. When I go to a store, I want less choices because I do feel
100%.
overwhelmed. But when I'm online, I want more choices. When I shop online and I only see like 3 or 4 SKUs, I'm like, I wish they had more things to look at online. And I think that, I don't know if that resonates with a lot of people, but at least for me it does. Like, if that's why I like Amazon online, but like, I can't imagine an Amazon store. I'd be like, I don't know what to do in this store, right? There's too much choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would offer that, is it really that you want more, like, do you really want to look at more stuff online, or do you want to actually have more options for the filters and the features, for example, that you want, right? Like, I mean,
I'm more specific on what I'm looking for online. Yeah. I want it more catered to me and more customized.
Well, exactly. And that's really, honestly, like, I left that shopping experience, like, and imagine all of these retail stores, and like, they have all of this inventory tied up, and I'm like, not interested, because you're right. There's no quick way to really understand, like, is there anything even in here worth me looking? Like, I really think that is going to have to become a much different part of the retail and, omni-channel. Everyone, like, pretending like it's so different. But like, how different would your store experience be if, like, even if you walked into a store, as an example, you could like maybe scan a specific QR code that would give you access to a specific kind of website or database set for that particular location that would allow you to start to understand if there's things that you should even be looking for. Because I think, to your point, people have different needs. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'd love to understand if there's some things in here that really cater specifically to my needs, but I can tell you that my patience for that is going to drop through the floor if I have to like feel like I'm fighting, for rations in like, where it's like, you can't move, there's all kinds of people, and you're like, this isn't worth it. Like, it wasn't important enough. Versus, sometimes you do want to walk in and do pure exploratory style shopping. Like, I don't know, I want to see if I get inspired by something, you know what I mean? Or something catches my eye.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been to a Red Wing shoe store at all.
Oh my God, only once, because they don't have them in this part of the, but when I was in Calgary, I 100% went to one of their stores.
They do actually now in Mississauga. They have.
Do
one.
they?
It's a pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah, it's pretty neat.
cool.
So you walk into the store.
I didn't need to know that, by the way. Thank you.
And it's a great experience because they have some good choices. You don't know what to get. It's kind of intimidating, but they get you to stand on this machine, and then the machine kind of measures your foot, and they're going, hey, based off your foot and what you talk about, what you want, these are the 3 choices that you should really lean towards. With these insoles, they'll make your feet feel great. Versus being like, hey, do I like this one or this one, or trying to go through. For me, it's a harder even segment because I have a bigger feet. I have a size 14 foot. So when I walk into a shoe store,
look at you over here showing off. Okay.
when I walk into a shoe store, for me, it's like, hey, I don't even look at the styles. I go, hey, do you have a size 14? And I go from the three choices. I'm always like, I can't. That's why I shop online. But at Red Wings, they make the experience far better because they go, these are the kind of shoes you want. Hey, we might not have this in stock right now, but we can have it delivered to you because we have it measured, fit, and ready for your foot based on you being in the store.
Yeah.
And I find that level of customization with the store and your logistics to be able to provide that service. I think that's where more stores should go. Same as something like Lululemon or like you're talking about Roots, where you come in and you're like, hey, I'm looking for a dressier, stretchier pant, and it'd be like, hey, listen, based off of your measurements, here's a quick, you don't want a 36, you want a 35. And then you don't want a 32, you want a 31. We can get that delivered and customized to you, what you would feel comfortable in, versus buying this generic one. I think that should be more of that extra SKU versus just piling on different fluorescent pink colors.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, well, these leggings are different because like the leg is like a half inch shorter than the other version. It's like no one's gonna notice that. Like, you know what I mean? But coming back to these Red Wings, so do you actually have any? I have some. I think they're called Beckhams, but I'm very, very much considering some Iron Rangers.
I have Iron Rangers.
Oh, do you, eh? What color?
Yes. Like the khaki color, the sand kind of.
The lighter one? Yeah, I'm thinking black. Anyway, sorry guys, random. We didn't mean to, but like, so, but the point about that though, and I agree with you about the Red Wing experience, because when I went into the one in Calgary, it was very solid, and the way that you interacted was great. Take that though, this flip side, and you can see where retail is hurting a lot right now. When I was running around these retail stores, there were two stores. And I'm not going to name them because unless I find out it's like a broad corporate policy, and then I'll call it out. But I went into these two stores, and honestly, the shopping experience was destroyed because I got approached for help 7 times. Like one of them was like 5 and the other one was like 7. And like, I'm like, guys, maybe, but like, can I actually have a minute to look? Because I didn't come into your store like looking for a specific item. If I did, I would have already asked you where it is. You know what I mean? And I think that there's an interesting balance, because when I was in retail back in the day, I worked on commission at Future Shop. There was you had to really understand how to manage a customer and how to bounce and when to approach and how to engage, because people knew you were on commission and they would get really antsy the second you would jump on them. So it became like a real art form about how you engage with customers and stuff like that. And it's funny just how much of that has been lost and how much potential opportunity is being lost to, move inventory, how to maybe guide people in their journey or whatever, just because, unfortunately, a lot of these situations have become, push product, make it transactional, like just try to get people to buy something as opposed to what they really need. But like those two experiences were like distasteful, honestly, being in stores that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few stores that come in mind that do it and do it well, but not about being approached so many times, but just knowing that if you're lost in the store, and like you said, working at Future Shop was the same thing. You'd be able to pick out the person that was on a mission, or they were looking for something specific, and you knew when to approach them. And that art form is often, I find it's more often lost on the north side in Canada than it is in the U.S. Because you go to like a Bass Pro Shop in the U.S., you go to like a Dick's Sporting Good, they're pretty much on point when to approach you, when not to approach you. When you're kind of picking up stuff and you're looking, they're far better at knowing that you need help than I find a lot of stores in Canada. I find Canadian Tire could do a lot more with people approaching you asking if you need help, because I would buy a lot more at Canadian Tire if people would ask if I needed help or if I'm looking for something, because sometimes I don't know what I'm looking for at a store like that. Yeah. Or Home Depot is another great example.
I was going to say Canadian Tire is bad for the fact that they've got a great inventory system. Like, honestly, probably one of the best retail inventory systems to be like, check the web and know what's online, in store, and where it is. But then they lose it sometimes in the last 2% where like they've changed the packaging on something and the packaging is the old packaging on the website, but it's not the same packaging in the store. So it's like, hey, it's in aisle here, row this and whatever. And you're like looking around, and sometimes obviously it's super easy. It's super easy to infer. But I remember last time I was looking for these weird kind of like hook things, and like the packaging had changed, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, is this the same? It seems like it should be the same, but like, why would they have not changed the picture? Like, so it's like, don't get lazy, guys. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna do it right, 100%. But yeah, so I don't know. Look, we're coming up on the end of time. That was actually way more of an involved and super broad conversation. That was cool, though. I like getting into a lot of stuff. What are you focused on for the rest of the week, or what should people be focused on this week?
I mean, a lot of things that were supposed to happen this week are still kind of not happening. People thought the tightening of the market because of potential strikes and this and that was going to happen. It didn't falter through. My focus, as always, is some new business. Always focusing on new business, focusing on how to develop your service to kind of go into the fourth quarter, because people are going to start looking at going, hey, it's RFQ season. Who are we looking for? What are they doing different? And it might not be able that you can do something different. It's just the ability, like we talked about last time, the ability of having an idea to do something different could set you enough apart and be like, hey, we love your idea. We're not going to use it, but we like that you're thinking outside the box is enough to get you through the door. So don't just be like, drop the rate to get the freight or drop the rate to get the customer kind of aspect of it. Focus on your niche. Always refine what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and that customer experience over and over and over again. Every time you deal with a customer, make sure it's a great experience. Doesn't matter what the situation. That's my continued focus every week.
And I think
how about you, John? What about you?
I've got a number of different things coming on, potentially some new stuff starting up. So kind of getting into a very much of like a data and execution mode. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that even stuff as simple as daily management and how you approach each day has got a lot more value than what they thought. Because so many service providers especially are essentially just brute forcing these problems, and it's going to kill them. And I think that they know that through Q4, but this type of approach isn't sustainable, and it's definitely not giving the richness in terms of like business acumen and partnership. So I've been having a lot of those types of conversations, so probably a few new things like that starting up, and then also helping a number of other people with some data related stuff to drive insights. It's wild. It always blows my mind when I connect with like new customers and stuff like that, and it's like, well, we can't tell this and we can't tell that, and we assume this and we assume that. I'm like, that shouldn't be a guess. Like that one specifically shouldn't be a guess. You know what I mean? So trying to get a few things like that set up, and obviously just watching a lot of the different trends that are going on. It's really, I'm curious to see how how as September is already winding down, which is crazy. October, November, like are so important. Like that retail dip. Everyone thinks it runs all the way through Christmas. It most certainly does not. Like that. Like there's sales there, and don't get me wrong, but the real bread and butter is happening sooner than it ever has before. And that sort of later October through to about the start of December is just so important. So really curious to see what we see shaping up that way over the next few weeks.
Perfect. Final thoughts so we can close off, because we're over on time, and as always, we're trying to be punctual.
That was my final thought. Other than thanking the new listeners today, that was super cool to see a bunch of new people in here. And by all means, if always want you to jump up, and if not, you could always message Matt or myself if there's topics, even if you don't want to speak yourself, that you'd love to hear us chat about. We're always open to that as well.
Awesome. And then next week we're going to do a 9:30 instead of 9 o'clock. So as always, please come back and join us. And have a fantastic week, and wake up and deliver. Bye, everybody.
Bye.